You fool! You cannot defeat me, the Dark Necromancer.
Hold up, legal. Tell him he can't do that. We already have a Dark Necromancer, right?
Actually, sir, we don't.
Really? We've got a Dark Magician.
Yes.
We've got a Dark Magician Girl.
Yes.
We've got a Dark Sage.
Yes.
We've got a Dark Blade.
Yes.
We've got a Dark Necro Fear.
Yes.
Huh. Well, don't let me stop you.
Okay. I'm going to kill you now. I'm going to kill you.
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. Well, we're a few weeks out from the release of Alliance Impact, so in the meantime, I'm going all in. With a little help from my Patreons, we are clearing out the rest of the jank. No stone will be left unturned as we scrape this bottom of the barrel, beginning with a deck the OCG never even had a chance to try. Presenting Vendread.
I'm Todd McFarlane, creator of Spawn. A crude scenario I've just painted? Possibly. But hell isn't settled, folks.
So here's the list. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course the card by card.
But first,
this video is sponsored by Summoner's Nexus. Summoner's Nexus is a digital indie trading card game in early alpha from former Yu-Gi-Oh! YouTuber Soul Plays Anime. The game takes place in a fantasy universe based on a novel that he's written under the same name and continues to integrate into the game via comics and stories for the lore. What sets this game apart is that both players progress through the turns simultaneously, meaning each player always gets a chance to play the game. It's impossible to be completely shut out by your opponent, and you don't have to wait for them to finish comboing off before you get to interact. Unlike some games you're about to see, this game was designed from the ground up to be easy for newcomers to pick up and offer skill expression and mechanical depth for competitive players. And with over 3 years of already planned expansions and updates, Summoner's Nexus is poised to grow alongside its community, offering fresh content and new mechanics to keep the game evolving for years to come. The game is currently in early alpha on Android, and all the cards are currently free, and will be when beta arrives on iOS. Click the link in the description below to begin playing on Android now. So with that, let's vacillate about Vendread. Vendread is a TCG exclusive archetype that's, oh my god, pushing 8 years now? The lore for these guys is pretty heartbreaking, taking cues from Resident Evil, Spawn, and maybe the 2007 Flash game Sunny to tell the story of a man partially infected by a zombie virus, trying to hold on to his humanity as he mows through legions of fodder. Their flagship monster, the Vendread Slayer, gets different effects based on the material used to summon him, an idea I had for the Hungry Burger retrain in 2016, and I can only imagine Konami swiped it. The sell of this archetype actually isn't that hard at all. Their ritual spells can summon monsters that are in the graveyard, send materials from the deck, or e-telly before you tribute. And with modern support from sets like Power of the Elements, the deck's been perpetually on the cusp of playability for years. Until now! We may have finally made it out of the cusp with some of the newest TCG exclusive cards from Supreme Darkness, namely Dark Necromancer. Now, make no mistake, this monster's generic name hides the fact that he's literally just Vendread support. When summoned, you could bin a fiend or zombie ritual monster, then search a ritual spell. If banished, doable by the spell he just searched, he can special summon a banished fiend or zombie. This opens up unreal combo potential for this deck, aided by the Fiendsmiths. Scar, for instance, triggers when a monster is tributed, not tributed for a ritual summon, so he procs off of Requiem. Battlelord locks your opponent for monster effects, protecting against Bestials. It's one of the few cases of each archetype helping each other to overcome their weaknesses. But will it be enough? So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, we've got 3 copies of Dark Necromancer. As mentioned, if this card is normally special summoned, you can send a fiend or zombie ritual monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard, then add a ritual spell from your deck to your hand. If banished, you can target one of your banished 4 or lower fiend or zombie monsters, of course that could be himself, and special summon it. Both of those effects are a hard once. After that, we've got 2 copies of Slayer, 2 copies of Battlelord, and Scar, who I should probably read because he came out in Pote, and I think you all were probably too busy reading sprites to care about this card. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add a Vendread spell trap from your deck to your hand, and if a monster on the field is tributed while this card is in your graveyard, you can banish another zombie from your graveyard to special summon this card, and while face up in the monster zone, you can't special summon monsters except for Vendread ones. Both of those are hard once per turns. After that, we've got Vendread Revenants, Vendread Houndhorde, and Vendread Core, 3 monsters that give your Slayer additional effects, and 3 copies of Engraver, a Lacrima, and a Fabled Lurie. After that, we've got a field spell that I do really want to talk about, Delta of Invitation. When this card is activated, you can send a level 5 or higher zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard, basically Scar all the time. You can only use each of the following effects of Delta of Invitation once per turn. If a zombie monster is on the field, you can special summon a Delta token, and if a monster is added from the graveyard to the hand while in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand. I can't believe they did it, but they may have finally found a field spell played in Zombie better than Zombie World. After that, we've got our Vendread ritual spells. We'll begin with Ravenous Vendread, which allows you to special a Vendread from your hand, deck, or graveyard and face down defense, then ritual summon a Vendread ritual monster by tributing monsters you control, including the one specialed by this card. Revendread Origin can be used to ritual summon a Vendread ritual monster from your hand or graveyard, and you are able to prevent your Revendread Slayer from being destroyed by battle or card effect by banishing this card from your graveyard. Finally, we've got Revendread Evolution, which ritual summons a Vendread ritual monster from your hand or graveyard, and allows you to send one Vendread monster from your deck to the graveyard as well as part of the cost. After that, we've got a Fiendsmith Tract, a Gold Sark, which is actually just a starter in a world where Dark Necromancer exists, a Foolish Burial, and a Pot of Prosperity. We're not playing a lot of non-engine. Scary, but we are playing Ash Blossom, Nibiru, and Infinite Impermanence. In the extra, we've got a Requiem, a Link Spider, a Masquerena, a Moon of the Closed Heaven, a Fiendsmith Sequence, a Vendread Savior, who is sort of Foolish Burial, SP Little Knight, Fiendsmith Agnum Day, Vampire Fascinator, kind of a weird card that cleans up some gummy board states and is a Link 3, very important for this deck. We've got Abo Aku, the Lightless Shadow, and Yukiona, the Absolute Zero Mayakashi, which is in here for this line of text. Negate any activated effects of your opponent's banished monsters. If you can make this versus Malice, you do win the game on the spot. We've got a copy of DDD Wave High King Caesar, Chaos Angel, Necroquip, Princess, and Fiendsmith's Desiree on the side. We've got 3 Chaos Hunter, 3 Lancia, 3 Ultimate Slayer, 3 Droplet, 2 Thrust, and a Talent. So with that, let's check out some games. Our first match is up against the potential man of the format, Azamina White Forest. Our hand is good, and it includes a Dark Necromancer. Let me show you what the boy can do. After getting ashed on our tract, we're going to normal summon the Dark Necromancer and activate the effect in order to send a copy of Battlelord to the graveyard. We'll grab an Evolution, then activate Evolution, sending a Battlelord for a Battlelord, so we trigger the effect of the Battlelord and make sure our opponent stops here. From here, we're going to go for a copy of Moon of the Closed Heaven, trigger the effect of the Battlelord in order to grab a Slayer and send a Scar, activate the effect of the Scar to get an Origin, and then link off for a Requiem. We'll activate Requiem to get a Lacrima, and oh my god, was someone just tributed? We'll activate the effect of the Scar in the graveyard, summoning it to our side of the field and setting a Fiendsmith Engraver. Next, we're going to go for the Origin, bringing out a copy of Slayer, then activating the effect of the Slayer as it goes to the graveyard as link material for a Vendread Slayer to get a copy of Ravenous Vendread and send a Core. We'll cycle back with the Vendread, then activate Vendread Core, banishing this copy of Dark Necromancer, which triggers its effect and summons it to our side of the field. We'll make an IP Masquerena, then activate the effect of the Engraver in graveyard in order to summon it to our side of the field into a Sequence. Sequence will trigger here. We're going to shuffle 3 bad boys back into the deck to get a copy of Desiree, and from here we can go into a Boa Ku, activate the effect in order to cycle back for a Dark Necromancer, and Ravenous Vendread out a set copy of Vendread Revenants into a Slayer that can use its effect. Finally, Sequence, target this copy of Desiree, set a card, and then at end step, grab back a Boa Ku. Our opponent will begin with a copy of Elzet that's going to get ashed by us, and they'll chain the Blackout Laughs in order to turn off the Desiree. That's a little scary. They're going to go for Engraver next in order to grab a Tract, then they'll activate Tract in order to grab a Lurie. They'll pitch the Lurie and then summon the Lurie to their side of the field, but we can deal with that. We'll go Slayer in order to banish it. They will chain the effect of Sinful Spoils of the White Forest in order to summon out the Elzet in hand, and we'll go IP Masquerena as they set a card to go into SP Little Knight, triggering both it and the effect of the Revendread Slayer. We'll banish the back row and then grab ourselves a copy of Origin as they pass turn. This should be an easy one to clean up. Let's go for a Boa Ku. We're going to go ahead and cycle our hand, and what do you know, we got another Dark Necromancer. We'll go Origin here to bring back a copy of Revenged Slayer, but we'll bring back the Dark Necromancer from the banish instead. Dark Necromancer here in order to send a Slayer and grab a copy of Ravenous to go into Chaos Angel, banishing the last remaining monster, and triggering the Slayer in order to grab another copy of Ravenous and send a Scar. Let's go to the battle phase and get in for well over lethal. Our second match is up against Mitsurugi, and not Razio Mitsurugi, just Mitsurugi. I guess we'll figure out who the optimal ritual summoner is. We're just doing the exact same combo here. Nothing exciting. We'll go Battlelord here in order to grab a copy of Slayer, send a copy of Scar to the graveyard, trigger the effect of the Scar, go into a copy of Requiem so we can trigger the second effect of the Scar in order to summon a Lacrima from our deck and the Scar from the graveyard and send an Engraver. So our opponent's got a pretty interesting grip here, and one of the things this deck kind of struggles with is it's very difficult for it to out a bunch of must-answer spells and traps. You're going to see that here. We do our best to play into it, this time getting Hound Horde into the mix because the core ended up in our grip. We'll trigger the effect of the core in order to summon back the Dark Necromancer. That's the 1 point of deviation from the previous combo. Then we'll go Engraver into a copy of Sequence, trigger the effect of the Sequence, shuffle 3 of these bad boys back, get ourselves a Desiree, and then afterwards make it a Boa Ku, equip the Sequence to the Desiree, and go Ravenous Vendread so that our Slayer has both the Revenance effect and the Hound Horde effect as well. Finally, we are going to summon back this copy of a Vendread Savior so we have it on our side of the field for protection as our opponent takes their turn. They're going to begin with a copy of Diabellstar, trigger the effect of the Diabellstar for Deception, and we really have to take any opportunity to go for Slayer here. Slayer. We're going to banish that bad boy. Afterwards, we're going to go for Prayers, grabbing Saji. This is really bad news. I get to summon the Saji. They get to trigger both the Saji and the Futsu here. They will do just that, grabbing Ame and a copy of, oh god, Prayers, or Ritual rather. Then they're going to go for Deception, and I realize, oops, I should have activated it on activation. That was stupid. They go for the Triple Tactics Talents, but that's why we have the Desiree on our side of the field. We will then Masquerena to try and keep the board clear using the SP Little Knight to banish this copy of Saji. But the Ritual kind of seals the deal, I think. We can clear our board so this Ame doesn't eat everything we own, but they're still going to get most of it. They're going to go Ame here and Nightsword Serpent, and we can send using Vendread Slayer, but they can also use the Great Purification to get out the Kusanagi as well. So they're going to grab back the Prayers and the Nightsword Serpent. From this position, they get to eat the Desiree. We can trigger the Desiree to get the Kusanagi off field, but they get to bring back the Ame as well. They will go ahead and normal summon this copy of Saji and then overlay for Abyss Dweller, and we can't beat that card on the crackback, so we'll scoop. So that's the bad news. Rough into multiple must-negate spells and traps, and Abyss Dweller during this format. Anyway, it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing Malice, and they are heavy on the Bystials, as you can see. We've opened Dark Necromancer, which is great news. We're going to begin with him. We'll activate the effect in order to send a copy of Vendread Slayer to the graveyard before we go for Evolution. Kind of a different line here, just because of the way the hand is worked out. We're going to go for a Battlelord, then trigger the effect of the Battlelord, banishing so they can't do any more monster shenaniganry. That keeps the Druid Worm in hand, means the Baldrake is offline, and means that we won't have to contend with anything else over the course of the combo. From here, we're going to go for the effect of the Scar in the graveyard off of the activation of the Requiem, as well as the Lacrima in order to send an engraver. Then we can Origin out this copy of Slayer in hand to make a Savior, which triggers the Slayer. We will grab another Origin and send a Core, Savior effect in order to grab back the Origin, Core to banish the Dark Necromancer, summon it to our side of the field, and from this position we can make IP Masquerena. We're going to go Fiendsmith Engraver here, summoning it to our side of the field, and then making a copy of Sequence. We'll trigger the effect of the Sequence, summoning a copy of Desiree, and then afterwards we will just go ahead and make a Boa Coup, trigger the Sequence targeting the Desiree, and we also probably should go for a way to get rid of this bad boy. We can do that by using the Ravenous Vendread to go into a Revenant's Slayer so that the Slayer can just go ahead and get this guy out of the picture. We'll set one card, bring back the Aboa Coup, and pass it back to our opponent. They're going to begin with a copy of Druid Worm. That's fine, I think. They'll go to the battle phase. That prompts the Slayer activation, but we do still have everything else. They're going to go Dormouse. We do have an Infip. I'm super happy about that. Then afterwards, they are going to go ahead and pass turn. We did not play into that triple attack, thank goodness. We'll switch everyone to attack and go into Vampire Fascinator. We'll trigger the effect of the Slayer as we go for Ravenous Vendread, bringing back the Scar of the Vendread and cycling it out for the Slayer, at which point Scar will trigger in order to grab us a Ravenous, Scar effect in Graveyard to summon Hound Horde, and Yukiona to seal the deal. There's nothing they can do from this position, but we can also use the banish effect of Slayer during damage in order to bring back the Dark Necromancer and get in for well over lethal this turn. So it's time for game 2, and you know, I really can't tell you how many Malice games play out exactly like this. They're going first. They're going to set 3 and pass. I mean, that's still pretty scary, right? We got some stuff. We'll begin with a Lurry into a Requiem effect in order to grab a copy of Lacrima. We're going to activate the effect of the Lacrima to send a copy of Engraver to the graveyard, then go for a copy of Ravenous Vendread into a Dominus Impulse. Oh, God. Okay, we'll go Requiem, target this Lacrima, then we'll make a copy of Necroquip, Engraver here in order to summon it into the Magnamut. Okay, horrifying news. They're going to go Magnamut to add, we'll set 1 and pass. They will grab a second copy of Druid Worm, and at end step, they'll go MTP for a Dormouse, as bad as it gets. They'll draw for turn. They're going to begin with the Dormouse activation. We will infip that, hoping that it's enough. Of course, we both know it isn't because we can see the remainder of our hand. They'll go Link Decoder into Druid Worm, banish the Dormouse, which allows them to trigger the Dormouse effect, summoning it to their side of the field. Afterwards, they'll link off for a Red Ransom, triggering both the Red Ransom and the Druid Worm, and the Link Decoder as well, sending our Necroquip and grabbing a copy of Underground. They'll activate Underground for Chessie Cat, activate Chessie Cat, summoning it to their side of the field, and oh boy, that's 5! Oh no, that's Dominus Impulse. Okay, we're dead. So it's time for that all-important game 3, and not only are we going first, we have a Lancia. Thank goodness we also do not have combo. Okay, well, I guess we will Lancia and hope for the best. You can see their Lancia, which I imagine is for crossout, but it would also be funny if they just boarded into Lancia, because it does have some application versus our deck. We're going to go into a Fiendsmith Requiem, into a Lacrima, into a sent copy of Engraver. We'll go for the effect of the Requiem on the Lacrima for a Necroquip and Engraver. Just eating a Druid Worm from our opponent. They have to be bricking on something. It really feels bad to even go for that line knowing that it's going to happen. At least we can play a little around it by going Chaos Angel. Oh my god, into a Lancia. It came up. Well, they've got a million starters, so they're going to begin with one of them. They'll go Dormouse. We will Infinite Impermanence, but I'm pretty sure the spell card will just check us here. They'll go into Link Decoder, Druid Worm, target the Dormouse. God, they don't even have to commit to it yet. They'll go Dormouse effect in order to summon it to their side of the field. Link 3 off for Red Ransom, and Druid Worm, and we will just scoop it here. So we're back with the deck, and whoa, that really showcased that now might not be the time to play a deck this rough into banishes. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, the new cards are killer. Dark Necromancer sews together the new and old Vendread cards perfectly. On its own, it's a 1-card combo that sets up Evolution and Ravenous extremely easily. The Banish effect synergizes with Origin and Core to extend even further, and it essentially completely centralizes the power of the deck into one singular package. A Battle Lord is still extremely powerful as well. You get to shut off a type of effect for the rest of the turn, which makes playing into Nibiru super easy, and it's great at shutting down back row rogue decks. 2, because the deck struggles to do anything on board in Archetype, but is able to print bodies effectively, it is perfectly complemented by the Fiendsmith engine, letting the combo lines focus on the very few good cards in the archetype to back up the generic and board pieces. And 3, the deck gets access to Yuki-Onna, the Mayakashi Link 4, which completely shuts down Malice. If you can get to it through hand traps, that is. And the cons. 1, nothing else in the deck does what Dark Necromancer does. Even your 2-card combos that don't include him lose out on an extra body, lowering the ceiling, and because of that, having Necromancer interrupted means that relying on low-power engine cards or Engraver is really all you've got. You don't have much non-engine already, so by playing the least amount of engine possible, Necromancer being interrupted can often just end your turn on the spot. 2, on top of that, the low non-engine count and weak extension means the deck really struggles going second, especially into a bestial format. And 3, this is the saddest of them all, the deck just has to pass if you get shifted. Nothing you can do. Overall, Dark Necromancer gave a breath of life into the Vendread engine, but the deck itself is still an all-or-nothing combo deck with very few benefits to playing right now, as cool as it might look. So that's that. Thanks so much for watching. These videos are made possible by, and occasionally suggested by, my patrons, some of whom have paid a ton of money to be mentioned at the end of the video. A huge heartfelt thank you to Elena Tincher, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Ally, Anthony S. Sierri, APK, Early Tier 0, Brett Henry, Cool Name, Damon O'Neill, Dark Rebel XYZ, Derpin Dragon, DJ Elefante, DK Gondo, NB Adams, FPS Lord Derp, Garrett Ran, Hergalicious, Juan Cruz Avilazati, Night Mary, Legal Rights, Luis Hernandez, Lullaby of Souls, Master of Faster, Matthew M. Derezzo, MBT Play Madolce, Mike Carlotti, N54 Lionheart, Nacho Gonzalez, Nebula Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pombo, Project Mercury, Rohan Doge, Rose Lapine, Serpentax, Shelby Piet, Sly Ninja 43, Soul CLG, Troy Says By Erasure Is Gay, Who's Nick, Wonder Waffle, and Yuki Kazami. Couldn't have done it without you.